So I've gotten a little crazy over the last couple days. Bought an air compressor, and I bought a bin, and I've been dabbling with a little bit of sandblasting. Now obviously that air compressor is nowhere near good enough to do any sort of decent sandblasting, but as I found, like most sandblasters, you need like 20 CFM. Most small air compressors like this do like 5 at maximum. But Harbor Freight sells this thing, which as I find is not that bad. So, air compressor, it says 3.5 CFM at 50 PSI air requirement, which I've got that. So, I set up this box. I should have just went ahead and bought the like $150 blaster box from Harbor Freight too, but I already spent too much money this week. And but what I did is I took, if I can open this up real quick. I've been trying to do some sandblasting in there. I just took a clear bin, put and glued and riveted some plastic gloves on there, and the only crazy thing with it was just the fact that I just chose a really bad container, because right here where this container opens, the lip doesn't really seal there, and I need a container to seal somewhat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble a new one, because another thing that I had problems with, the gloves that I bought, they really sucked. It's like they look longer in the package than they were. I mean, the gloves that I just bought for them aren't too much better, but at least they won't rip like the other ones did immediately, hopefully. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'll show you my thought process on this. Alright. So this is probably going to be a little bit of an unorganized mess of a video. But anyway, what I've got here is I've got a bin. Bin cost about $8 at Walmart. Pipe cost $8. Got some rivets that I needed. Gloves were $2.50. This weather stripping was like $3.50. 50 cents for a pad. And obviously you have the tools that you need. I just got a couple of wrenches that I can take apart this with. And actually more or less the hose. Really aren't, I can't speak today apparently. Really not doing anything with that. Drill bit big enough for your hands to go through, or arms, or whatever you need. Small drill bit to use for the filter portion, and another variable size drill bit for the other things we'll be using. So let me go ahead, I forgot the rivet, so let me grab that real quick. Oh, yeah, and of course, knife, Sharpie, and some super glue. Super glue will come in handy here in a moment. So, the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to drill the holes in the front here for the arms. You want them spaced evenly so it'll be comfortable, but you don't want them too far apart where you won't be able to hold apart. So, essentially I want them like just about maybe here-ish. So here and here. And I don't want it to be all the way at the bottom, because that'll make it easy for the sand to pop out. Oh wait, let me get a different drill bit. Oh, not a drill bit. Let me get a different battery. was a little dangerous. I could have accidentally rubbed myself against that, and that would have not been good. Alright, so yeah. Now I can get our hands in there. So before I go any further, I'm going to just clean off the edges on this. Alright, now that I got these holes cleaned up, I was going to go ahead and put the gloves in, but I'll wait until the next step on that one. What I'm going to do is actually go ahead and drill my hole for my filter. Oh crap, it broke a little bit there. Whoops. I'll just put a little bit of super glue on that, and hopefully that'll be perfectly fine. I'm going to clean that up in a second, but I figured I'll go ahead and just finish up with the drill section, so I don't have to deal with drill bits afterwards. So the only other holes that I have to put in are going to be the ones on the side here. One for the sand input and one for the air. So I'm going to make them just big enough. One hole just big enough for this tube to fit, and one hole just big enough for the end of this to fit. Because what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to put it in and then screw it on the other side and then put some sealant in there so I don't have any sand coming back out. And again, I don't want to do it too low because I just don't want it filling up with sand and then I have to deal with that later on. So for this one, I'll go ahead and just use my variable bit. This was like $5 at Harbor Freight. There we go. Could have actually gone a little bit smaller on that one, but it really shouldn't matter too much. Once there's pressure going through that, it's gonna, I mean, it's basically sealed up as is. So there's not gonna be a major thing. I mean, worst case scenario, if I really have to, I can just go ahead and put some silicone on that. Let's see here. That might. Oh, just a tiny bit bigger. Alright, I'm fairly certain I can get that on. Is that the right end? Yeah. Alright. See if I actually have a, yeah. Yeah, just because I didn't show it last time, really all I'm doing is this is basically one of the only steps that I'm using the knife for. And I'm just running it around this to get the excessive stuff off. Got to be more careful with that. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and use it as the filter. So I don't want to just drill this through and actually use that because it wouldn't fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and mark around this best I can anyway. Should be close enough. And just make sure that it's just a little bigger. I really haven't even tested to see if this works. I'm just assuming it will. And make sure that's the right size. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. I should have made it a little bit bigger. I'm going to try one more time, just because this sponge was so cheap. It's going to be a little bit larger. Yeah, so what I'm thinking will work, I have to be real careful, because I'm just going to kind of cut a little bit out of this, in between the spaces. Put a little bit of a groove in there, essentially, is what I'm doing. And I'm hoping I can just set this groove in between. Now it's being difficult. I'll do another pass here, just make sure that I gave it a thorough groove. That should be alright. Now the trick will be getting that groove in there. I chose this type of sponge just because I want maximum airflow. I just needed something to prevent the dust particles from going through easily, because we want a good amount of air to go out of this, just for the fact that, I mean, you're going to be blowing in quite a large amount of air into the system. Alright, and I really don't know if this material the sponge is made out of will react to super glue. I hope it doesn't. I'm just gonna put a couple corners on there just to keep that in place. Alright, now for the hard part. Essentially, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drill little holes all over this, like top, bottom, left, right, and then in between every section. And I'll do it on both sides, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these gloves, I'm going to set them in, and I'm going to just rivet them in place here. But while I'm doing that, each time I put a rivet in, I'm also going to glue it down so it has an airtight seal. And that's another thing the super glue is for. It worked well on the other one, so it'll probably work just fine on this one. The only downside with using the rivets is if the gloves decide to break on me, or if I have to replace the gloves, I'm going to have to remove every single rivet. So, I mean, honestly, it's better off just using regular screws, but I'm just going to use the rivets. So, I'm going to go ahead and drill it and show you how that looks, and then I'll do like a time lapse of the rest of it. Alright, got both my gloves in. Now the only thing that I didn't do that I probably should have for that is I probably should have etched the plastic to give the super glue something to hold on to a little bit better, because it might just peel off this glossy plastic. But for the most part, It's not going to be a big thing. The way it's setting up against there, it's a pretty good seal regardless. Now these gloves are a little bit difficult to put on. So I think what I'm going to do is, like the first or second time I put them on, I'll probably oil my hands just to stick them down in there. I'll probably just use like canola oil or something. But so far so good. So the only major thing that I have left to do besides screwing on the pipe is putting up the sealer. But actually, I think I am going to go ahead and screw the pipe on first. That way I get this portion out of the way. Oh, that's on that tight. Worst case scenario, I'll just have to reseal it again. I mean, the other end doesn't do a very good job of sealing up anyway. Oh, that one's too big. Ah, there it is. There we go. Nice and tight. That can pop on right there. So go in and attach to this. Make sure there's just about as much on the one side to the other. Alright, yeah, and all we have to do is seal and then we can test it. Yeah, it's a lot easier to get the corners to fit once you actually get the it all set and remove the paper. But hopefully we won't be opening the lid too often unless we need to pull out the project. Alright, let me just make sure it latches. Whew. Yeah, that is quite something. Alright, hopefully that'll actually seal up. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up so we can test it. I'm going to oil my hands up and then see if we can sandblast something. Alrighty. So we're all basically ready to go here. I do apologize with the 3D printer noises there. So I'm going to throw one of these two pieces of metal that are basically the same. I was using one of them for a project and then I changed it up. So it's just trash metal. And I already practiced a little bit with this one with my old setup. So we'll see how this setup does in comparison. So I'm going to throw these in here. I'm going to oil up my hands, and then air compressor is going to kick on so you won't be able to hear anything. so that actually worked pretty good. I definitely can see where my filter's not doing as good. Well, maybe it's my filter. I'll have to watch back the footage here and see where all the dust is coming from. But barely any is coming to the front, and just a little bit's going in the back. So it looks like it's probably, oh, like the corner seal here. Huh, I might put something else right there to just keep it from flying. You can see all the dust that's still popping through. Yeah, so this is, I think I'm using a 70 grit. Oh, fail. And of course, I just took it out and started cleaning it off with a towel that I just put oil on. Let's see. Yeah, I missed one spot, but yeah, honestly, it's not bad. So this was the original piece for this. And this, I need to see if it's focusing or not. Whoa! So that's the one I just sandblasted. That's the original. So yeah, it turned out pretty darn good. Of course, I'm getting oil all over them. So yeah, let me fix that real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and just transfer the camera over to show the stuff blowing out of the filter, see what I got to deal with there, and then I'll show maybe if I can capture some of the sandblasting, and I'll use something with a lot thicker paint. So yeah, obviously for a little air compressor and a little itty bitty sandblaster, it's not going to do it very fast, but honestly it's impressive compared to what I thought it would actually be doing. So I still have to work out a couple bugs here or there because there is still small holes that the sand's coming through, and it's kind of hard to sandblast and show it in the camera on something that's plastic because it shows like it fogs up, but what it's doing is it's making the plastic matte. So obviously a long-term solution, it's not perfect. I mean, what I can do is if that plastic gets all messed up, I'll probably just go ahead and just take a glass panel and glue it in place. I definitely should have etched out around where the gloves were because that is getting a tiny amount of sand through. So as of right now, I'll probably still use a small respirator to just keep some of the particles out. You definitely want to reduce that as much as possible. Definitely hearing protection. Trying to think of anything else besides that. But yeah, it's very, very easy. So that'll actually work out perfect. So the main reason I got an air compressor, besides all this, is you might have noticed the oven, the small oven, toaster oven thing in the beginning of the video. I bought a powder coat machine, or gun, or whatever you want to call it, powder coat gun. And I think I'm going to attempt to powder coat my moped. Like the whole thing. So obviously that little oven's not going to do the frame. But that little oven can take care of some of the small parts that I have. And I'm just going to construct a propane oven eventually here to actually do the whole frame. So if that's something that you're interested in seeing, just watch my channel. Subscribe! But yeah, I'm just going to keep this channel as real as possible. Because there's a lot of fake people online, you know what I mean? But yeah, so far it's been great. I'll catch you in the next video.